Hello and welcome to a CTERA training video. Today we'll be looking at CTERA Edge Gateway. This video is aimed at the CTERA Edge Cache Gateway end user experience. So today we'll cover how to access the file shares, what's the difference between a stub file and a regular file, and also a little bit about how the files are synced into CTERA portal and what we can do from there. So you can see on the desktop, I have two mapped network drives, as we would in any NAS or Windows file server environment. So the user experience is identical. I can obviously access network drives. And here I'm presented with, in this case, the cloud folder for the user, Rick, on Virtual Gateway, which is also called Rick. Browsing through the folders, you can see, for example, in Cloud folder, if I double click, there are some files with an X and some files without. This clearly identifies files which are stubs and files which are regular files which have been completely downloaded on the Virtual Gateway. So for example, I have a folder on the Virtual Gateway on my Edge CTERA Gateway appliance called Videos. And I can see that the majority of these files, if not all, have an X. This means that these files are available to the end user. The files are actually hosted and are saved and stored in the cloud object storage, but are available to the user as a stubbed file. This can also be indicated by reviewing the file properties. So if I right-click on a file and click Properties, I can see that in this case, the folder Videos, this total size of the folder is 6.2 gigabytes, but the actual size on the disk is only 81 megabyte. And if I click on a file, Properties, you can see that the file size is 47 megabytes. This would mean that 47 megabytes are hosted, are archived into the cloud storage, but storage locally consumed on the edge device is 0 bytes. We also have a folder on the gateway, which was named Pinned for this demo. And the pinned folder is a way to guarantee offline access to files. As I explained in another demo video, what the gateway is continuously checking with the caching technology is the amount of storage that the gateway has available on its local storage using its local drives. And when it reaches a certain threshold, files will be identified to be cached or to be stubbed or archived into the cloud. And in this case, the file will become a stub file, and the real file will be hosted inside of the cloud storage. Now, there are times perhaps where you would like a file or a folder to be available for offline purposes, meaning that should you require access to a file whenever there is perhaps no internet or network connectivity to your CTERA portal, so that the file cannot be downloaded, you can very easily select this file or this folder for offline or for offline access. And here, as an end user, it's also very easily identifiable files which are available. There is no X on the name. And if we click on the file and properties, we'll also see that indeed the size of the file corresponds with the size on the disk. So as you can see, the user experience for the Edge Gateway is identical to legacy NAS or Windows file servers. So there is very little disruption or learning to do as an end user. Drive letters and file share names can also be migrated and replicated using the CTERA Gateway. And what I would also like to show is how, as an end user, by hosting my data on a CTERA platform or on a CTERA Edge Gateway device, it opens up a number of possibilities of data access. Meaning, in this case, I'm accessing, as a user, data which is on my local LAN gateway. But because the CTERA Gateway is also cloud enabled, it's cloud connected to the CTERA platform, this enables me as an end user to access my files on the move or as a roaming user. An example of accessing files in this way would be through a web browser. So if I open up a web browser, access the CTERA portal to which my gateway is connected, access with the same username as the files on my Edge device. Obviously, within this enterprise environment, user authentication will be managed by central source and Active Directory and LDAP server. And you can see how the same folders and files which are available to me as an SMB share are also available from the cloud. So if I click on my files, I can see my files information and so on. So this is a very easy way to provide mobility to your users. And on the same note, file access over WAN or directly to the cloud is also available through the CTERA mobile client, which is available on iOS and Android. There is an additional way to connect to your files whenever the gateway is not available. So we had one scenario which we just discussed, which was as a roaming user or as a mobile user, how can I access files that are stored on my CTERA Gateway? But we have another case where perhaps the filer in the remote office has some kind of failure, local failure, drive failure, perhaps there's an issue with the local LAN, and users are unable to access the data through the SMB share. Mobile access and web access is not ideal, perhaps, for some users who are accustomed to the standard MAP network drive and access to their data in a traditional manner. So to combat this scenario, CTERA also has a way to connect to the cloud platform over WebDAV. And you can see in this example, I have 3 network locations. I have my pinned network, which is mounted as my P drive. I have my R drive, which is my cloud folder on the gateway. But here, you can see that there is an additional mount, but instead of using SMB, we're using WebDAV. Now this means that we can use a secure HTTPS connection directly to the CTERA portal and access information very similar to how we would be accessing as a local network drive. So as an end user, I could access this WebDAV mount. And you can also see that the same folders are available to me as an end user directly from the cloud. So obviously this is an extremely easy and elegant solution for any disaster recovery scenarios. And also it's extremely easy for users in a non-disruptive manner to provide user access to their data should there be any incidents locally in the office or with the CTERA Gateway. One more topic I would like to cover is how CTERA works in a global file system environment. If we remember in past videos, CTERA can host one single namespace or a global file system connecting several gateways to the same namespace. That enables us to have a global file system sharing data seamlessly between gateways. The technology of CTERA syncing is bidirectional, which means that any data which has been shared between gateways is immediately synced into the cloud and immediately pushed down to any other device which is in the same sharing policy or in the same shared group. So to show you an example, we have the V gateway for RIC. We're also going to connect to another virtual gateway. This gateway is owned by Liam. Right, the username in this case will be Rick. And then we can see on a completely different gateway in a different location, which has access to the same namespace as vGateway RIC, is hosting the same information, the same folders and file structures as the gateway from RIC. I would like to show an example of how data can be synced between two separate gateways. So here we have the My Files folder on the gateway RIC. And the My Files folder on the gateway Liam. This is a shared folder that has been synced between these two gateways. As I said before, because they are on the same namespace or they're sharing the same global file system. Opening the file, we can see that they both have the same content. So I'd like to make a change. Hello, Rick. Save that file. That file will be synced to the gateway RIC. And just in the meantime, before I forget, I would also like to show you how the CTERA Gateway is integrated with the previous version technology in Windows. So here, if I click on the previous version tab, we can see that there are several versions of this file. So the file which I've just edited, and then also two other versions which I can roll back to or restore from. And if I open Hello World now on the RIC Gateway, we can see that the content has been synced to the file that's hosted in another gateway on the same namespace. So this finalizes the product demo for an end user on the CTERA Edge Gateway. I hope it was useful. Should you have any more questions or queries about the technology or about the product, please contact your local CTERA representative. Thank you.